And ever since that day, I realized how urgent it was to share the gospel and the urgency of sharing the message that we had as missionaries to share.
Yeah.
And I think that like forever changed my mission. So.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today in the studio, I'm joined with Kinley.
Hi guys.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you.
I met Kinley a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned that she went on a mission, and I wanted to have her on to hear more about her experience and the lessons that she learned while serving. But yeah, Kinley, let's just jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and why you decided to go on a mission.
Okay, I'm from Draper, Utah, so not too far. I never wanted to go on a mission my whole life. I just didn't think it was for me. And then over time, I thought more and more about it. And then I saw my older brother. He decided to go like out of nowhere. All of us were kind of shocked about it. It was just a cool change just because all of our extended family wasn't members. And so it was just like a new thing for the Harriman family.
Yeah.
So he went out and I just saw all the things he learned and how much he changed, and like he knew everything about the Book of Mormon. I was like, I want that. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And so one day I went to seminary my senior year, and I was just sitting in class, and my teacher was teaching faith, just a lesson of faith. So he invited someone to come up to the front of the classroom, and he blindfolded them, and he said, okay, what you're gonna need to do is take 2 steps into the unknown. And there was like obstacles in front of him. And so the guy was like, okay. And so he just takes 2 steps, and that phrase stuck with me. Like, take 2 steps into the unknown. And the kid took his blindfold off, and there was a picture of Christ. And the kid just kind of got emotional looking at the picture of Christ. And I just I applied that to my own life. And I was like, wow, like that could be me with a mission. I could just take those 2 steps into the unknown. I don't know where I'm going to go or how it's going to be. But I just had to take those 2 steps and start it. So I just started my papers and submitted them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, growing up, that was never something that you really wanted to do.
Yeah, I just never thought about it. I was super tight with my family. It wasn't like I was anti-going. It was just more, I don't want to leave my people, my friends, or anything behind. So,
no,
yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's crazy the influence that especially a sibling can have on you.
Totally.
And because I was in that I had a similar experience. I have older brothers who served missions, and that kind of set the tone for our family, and I'm so grateful for it. Tell me about getting your mission call. I haven't said where you're going yet because it's such a cool place, but tell me about getting your mission call and reading that place and the kind of the feelings and emotions you experienced.
For sure. So my brother, okay, I'll say where I got served. I opened my mission call. I was super nervous. I decided I was going to open it by myself first because I was like, okay, I just was so excited. I couldn't wait. So I actually went to my grandpa's grave. My brother had opened his mission call at his grave before too. So I went there and I just said a prayer, and I was like, I know I'm going to be called where I need to be, but I'm so scared. Send me somewhere cool, or I don't know where you need me to go. And so I opened my call and I read Tahiti, Papeete, Tahiti mission. And I was floored because that's where my brother served, actually.
Are you serious?
It was the same mission.
The same mission?
Exact mission.
You're kidding.
And we had a trip planned to go to Tahiti to his mission after the visit. So I was so excited. When my brother got the call, I was so excited, and I was kind of jealous because it was French speaking. I grew up speaking French. I did French immersion since like 2nd grade. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like me and my brother can speak French together.
Yeah. So
when I got the call, I was just so shocked, and I just cried because I was like, okay, like the Lord needs me where my brother went. Like, what a cool thing. Like, I hadn't heard of siblings going to the same mission. So
that's crazy. And so, but your brother didn't do the French immersion growing up.
Yeah, he didn't.
Only you had, but then he went to a French speaking mission.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so crazy.
Yeah.
What did you do after you opened it by yourself? Did you call your brother immediately? Like, I feel like
to.
I would have a hard time not doing that.
I wanted to so bad. I wanted to just tell them. And my whole family knew that I had opened it. And so I had came back, and all of them were like, where are you going? Where are you going? And I was like, I'm going to play this off.
Right.
So I just played it as like, I didn't know where the place was.
Yeah.
And so I got home and was like, oh, like, I don't know. And my mom was like, just tell me you'll be safe. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my gosh, they're all freaking out. And so I finally got to a point I was like, guys, and I texted in the family chat. I'm like, I'm going to open it at 6:30. Like, before all my, like, friends were coming over around, like, 7:30. So I opened it in front of my family, and I hadn't told my brother yet. I just read it. And my brother picks me up, and he just swings around. He's like, let's go. My whole family was just shocked. Like,
That is
so
so
excited.
wild.
Yeah.
Dang. So the MTC probably started earlier for you because your brother
Yes.
probably kind of walked you through what
Yes.
to expect.
For sure.
What were some things that he maybe told you about or stories that helped prepare you for your mission?
He had told me so much. He loved his mission. He
Yeah.
loved Tahiti. It's like he came home Tahitian. He always
Yeah.
would tell us like about how amazing the people were and how giving and loving they were. And just the more he talked about it, the more I was like, okay, like I need to go there.
Yeah.
He just had such cool stories of how loving and incredible and like how the people just gave everything that they had to you.
Yeah.
And I was just excited to work with those people and kind of give back in a sense of like share the gospel in that environment.
Yeah.
Because I thought of how much, like, I don't know, how amazing that would have been. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very unique experience. You don't ever hear
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, so how soon after did you leave on your mission? Do you remember when you got your call was it
Yes,
a couple
a long
months? Was it a
time.
long time? Yeah.
I got my call November 11th and I didn't start my mission till April 24th.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
5 months, it was a long 5 months.
Yeah, and usually once you are at that point, you're pretty much ready to just
Totally.
get going, and
Yeah.
so that can kind of drag on.
Yeah.
Um, but what MTC did you go to, and
Mm-hmm.
what was your experience like there?
Okay, I went to Provo MTC. That was super fun. I was there for 6 weeks for French and then 3 for Tahitian. So I was there
Oh
for
my
nine
goodness.
weeks. That was a long time.
Holy, did they just like switch the language on you?
Yeah, so we had the first 6 weeks with like the African elders. So
Mm.
we were mixed with like the elders going to Africa and like all the Tahitian like missionaries. And then we watched all the African elders leave for Africa. We sent them off to their missions and all of us were stuck and we're like, we still have 3 more
Like
weeks
round
here.
two,
Yeah.
and then you're studying
Then we
a
started Tahitian.
totally different language.
Totally different, nothing similar.
And that was probably super easy, huh? To just like
Totally.
swap.
No, it was hard.
How
It was so hard.
is there overlap as far as similarities between those two
Not at
languages, or
all.
was it just learning an absolute
Just
new
absolutely
language?
start fresh, a new
Wow.
language. Yeah.
And what did you speak mostly on your mission?
Definitely French. French was
Really?
more dominant. Tahitian
Okay.
was kind of the older generation. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's probably like the native dialect
Yeah.
is the Tahitian one,
Mm-hmm.
but then
Mainly
probably the
French.
French
Yeah.
influence is probably kind of taken over.
Yeah. When you get there and they see like white missionaries speaking their language, like Tahitian,
Yeah.
that's when it like really touched the Tahitians'
Oh
hearts.
wow.
Like they were like, wow, like who are these people? And they'd want to hear more. So that was really cool too.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
What's the church like in Tahiti as far as membership is? Are there a lot of members of the church there? What is missionary work like there?
There's lots. They're all believing. They all believe in God. I
Cool.
mean, I would say majority. They all believe in God, Catholic. Like, there's lots of different religions, I would say. I don't know the dominant. I would say that all of them believe in God. So that helped a lot just because they're such a believing people
Hmm.
and very faithful. So that
Yeah.
was awesome.
That's cool. That you have a place to start,
Yeah.
at least in most situations.
Totally.
What were the members of the church like out there? Were they supportive in missionary efforts
Yeah.
or
They
what
were
were
awesome. They were
yeah.
super supportive. They'd always come out with us. I always caught myself working with they called like grandmas mommies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always caught myself working with like these super old mommies like that were like had to be in their 80s,
Yeah.
but they were just so passionate about like sharing the gospel that they would like trek those dirt hills with us all the time. And like
Oh my goodness.
I just looked back of like I want to be like that one day.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Seeing those people, what did that do to you and your testimony and your dedication to, build God's kingdom?
Totally. I think seeing the members like you honestly say you go out to teach everyone, the friends and the members, but you learn so much from the friends and the members. I think that I learned so many lessons from the members of the church and just their example. not even their words, but even just their actions of how they showed up for missionaries and other people in the ward, and how they would go the extra mile every time just to help people come to church, or
Yeah.
like drive an extra like 5 miles, or like up a huge dirt hill just
Wow.
to like help friends get to church. So that just kind of showed like at what point they wanted everybody to come and
Yeah.
have that word of God, you know?
That's
Yeah,
such a cool
that
experience
was cool.
with the the first couple months of your mission. I'd love to hear an experience or two. Obviously that's an adjustment period.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the conversations I have when people start missions, whether you grew up in Utah or in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
basically anywhere you go, there's a
Mm-hmm.
culture shock,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
even though your brother probably prepared you as good as he could have in the
Mm-hmm.
MTC, you learned a lot, probably got tips of what to expect and what the people would be like. But what was that like for you? Was there a culture shock with the
Mm-hmm.
food? What were some of those growing pains that you went through early
Yeah.
on in your mission?
Totally. I would say MTC was definitely my first, like, okay, this is hard. I'm leaving home. But when I got to Tahiti, I had already been there with my family. That was super cool. I just kind of
Mm,
felt like a piece of home was with me, but also I was kind of alone in a way. I wasn't with my family this time. But I just remember having my name tag on and being like, okay, I'm not alone in this thing. I just have to keep going. So then I got picked up by my trainers. They were two, one from France and one from New Caledonia.
oh wow! So
And
you were in a trio to
yeah,
start out.
trio
That's
trained.
super cool.
I almost didn't get my visa. I got reassigned in the MTC to go to Alaska. And
Whoa!
then the day before, my mission president called and was like, "You're coming to Tahiti."
No
So I had
way!
almost packed my bags to go to Alaska, but I had gone to Tahiti the day.
Wow!
Yeah,
That
that was
was probably a
crazy.
relief after 9 weeks in the
Yes, I
MTC.
prayed. I prayed because I was like, I'm gonna lose all the language I just learned.
Yeah.
Like, but anyways, I get to Tahiti and my trainers pick me up and they're like, "Hey, like we're going to an activity." Like right when I got there, it was like 4 in the morning when we had got there. We did presentations, all the things, but they're like, "Hey, we're gonna head out." So we had our first member meal, and I just remember seeing the houses and seeing the streets, and it was just like, "Whoa, like this is." I can't. I would never take anything for granted after that. Just
Yeah.
seeing those like houses and everything, I was just kind of shocked. But you walk up to a house and you just see the Tahitians. They've run out and they're just so excited to see you.
Wow.
They just are just arms open, just ready. They're like, "Welcome, like come eat, come like hang out." And I just remember that first feeling of that, like just
Mm.
that family, like centered kind of type like, culture,
Yeah.
that I was like, okay, like I think I'm gonna be okay.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's cool to have to feel that earlier on in your mission,
Totally.
to kind of understand that God has considered who you are and where you will have an effective and positive mission,
Mm-hmm.
and
Totally.
being able to feel those emotions early on kind of sets you up for um, an awesome mission. I'm sure there were hard times,
For
as
sure.
there is with every mission experience. But what's a story that you might have from the first couple months in your mission? Maybe someone that you taught.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me something or a cool story that you have.
Okay. The beginning, I definitely was still rusty on my French. When I had taken French immersion, but I had learned like school French. I hadn't learned gospel terms. And
Hmm.
normally it's the opposite for missionaries. If they like just learn the gospel, they won't know like the other terms.
Yeah.
So I was kind of flipped in that way.
Hmm.
So I went to go teach this family they had been teaching. This guy's name was James. He wasn't baptized. He was the dad of, he had 3 kids. And I remember it being in a trio was kind of hard because my two companions already had been together the transfer before.
Hmm.
So they knew how to work, and I just kind of like jumped kind of in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was a greenie. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what to say. I was still learning French, Tahitian, all the things.
Yeah.
And so I get in there, and they're like, hey. So they teach the whole lesson, and then they look at me at the very end and be like, what do you want to say? Like, Sister Herman, what do you want to say? And I was like, what do I want to say? Like, don't blow it.
Wow.
And so I remember just bearing my testimony to James that I just knew that he was ready for baptism, which was so random because I had just
Whoa.
gotten to the field and I was just a new missionary. And I was just like, I think that's what they were talking about. I had no idea what was happening.
Oh
It
my
was hard to
goodness.
follow,
Yeah.
but I was like, I just know that you're ready for like the next step. And he just kind of looked at my trainers and looked at me and was like, yeah, like, you're right. And so the next lesson, he accepted the invitation to be baptized.
No
That
way.
was crazy.
So this is a couple weeks in or
Yeah, a couple
okay.
weeks in, and then they had already had a baptism like my second day of the mission.
Oh my goodness.
Just like two like primary kids that were older than 8 though,
Yeah.
and that was just I would just remember feeling the spirit so strong. I didn't totally understand like what they were saying,
Yeah.
but I just remember that overwhelming like peaceful feeling, and I was like, whoa, like this is just the start of 18 months of like the spirit, you
Yeah.
know? So it was cool.
Seriously, it's the best environment to
Mm-hmm.
have experiences with God and in the
Totally.
spirit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're turning outwards towards others and you're looking for opportunities to just help others come to Christ, that's usually the most effective way for you to become closer to Christ.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, I'd love to hear. I want to talk a few about a few more stories in a sec, but preach my gospel.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge reason why I even started having these conversations, and I wanted to hear these mission stories. What role did preach my gospel play in your mission, and were there specific parts of preach my gospel that helped you in your discipleship?
Totally. I would say the beginning of me opening Preach My Gospel, at first I was like, you go through a phase as a missionary where you feel like you don't know enough. And that was a phase that was hard. That was definitely the first few months I would say of me being like, do I know enough to be out here? And I just didn't know, and I prayed, and I just had a prompting to open Preach My Gospel. And I had already opened it multiple times as a
Yeah,
missionary, but I was like, okay, like, God, you just got to help me out. And so I remember opening, like, it was chapter 1,
cool.
and there's a section that just says the power and authority of your calling. And I just read that, and I remember just crying after reading it because I was like, oh, like, this is how powerful my calling really is.
Yeah,
And it just kind of talked about how, like, the Lord would, like, magnify my efforts as a
yeah.
missionary. And that changed my whole mission.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
love that you'd say that because um, that's I usually don't get into this topic in on this podcast because I just like to talk up all the good that's going on in the church and
Totally.
missionary stuff. But there's a lot of people in the world within the church and outside of the church who are critical towards, women in the priesthood
Mm-hmm.
and um, what that means.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Do you have like you talk about the authority and power of your calling? That's
Mm-hmm.
clearly applied to sister missionaries.
Yeah.
What
Totally.
what did that do for you when you read this section? Like how did that
Yeah.
affect your work?
I just felt at that time I was feeling just not enough. I wasn't feeling not worthy, but I was like, do I know enough truly to be a missionary, to be an instrument in God's hands? Like this is such an important work, and I don't want to mess it up. I was so
Yeah.
worried about it. But I read Preach My Gospel, and it talked about how us as sister missionaries were set apart by that authority.
Wow.
And ever since reading that, I was like, okay, like I have that authority to preach the gospel. I have God with me. I have Jesus Christ's name on my chest. And why in the world do I think I'm not worthy or what, not enough? Like, I knew that He would magnify my efforts after, because knowing I had that authority that was super powerful. So,
Dang. That I love to hear that. For those watching, this is or listening, this is on page 3 of Preach My Gospel under chapter 1, the authority and power of your calling. I'm just going to read the first little bit because I think it's awesome. It says, "You are called and set apart to proclaim glad tidings of great joy, even the everlasting gospel. Like the sons of Mosiah, you can teach with the authority and power of God. Under Christ's direction, the authority to preach the gospel was restored through the prophet Joseph Smith. When you are set apart as a missionary, you receive this authority. With it comes the right, privilege, and responsibility to represent the Lord and teach his gospel." And there's not a heading or a specification at the top of this that says, oh, this only applies to elders. This only
totally.
applies to men.
Yeah.
All missionaries, sisters, and elders operate under that same authority. They're set apart through the holy priesthood that has been restored. and has access to the same power to perform miracles, to proclaim the gospel, to help people come closer to Jesus Christ. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love that you point to that section. I haven't read this section in a minute, and so
Yeah.
I'll have to study that. Go study that chapter
Do
or
it.
page number 3. Super cool. So tell me, I'd love to hear, was there any experiences you had that were not as rainbows and sunshine?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
were there scary moments on your mission? Were
Mm-hmm.
there, weird moments to navigate when teaching? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
anything that you could share
Yeah,
about that?
for sure. There's definitely scary things in a mission, for sure.
Yeah.
There were lots of times where we were followed as white missionaries all the time. People were
Hmm.
like, oh, like Americans. We were followed a lot walking home or like biking home. As a missionary, though, you never feel unsafe. You always feel like he's with you because you know he is.
Yeah.
There was one time I did have a guy that stalked me on my mission.
Really?
he wanted to like he wrote me like this letter and was like, I want to like take you out, escape you from this cult, like scary stuff. But
Whoa.
I remember that like we were teaching him and he I don't know, it was weird. But I just remember like being super floored by the whole situation. And I remember my mission president, my parents freaked out. I told them what was happening. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure.
this guy's trying to follow me. It's kind of weird. I told my mission president, he emailed my parents, but I just remember like never being scared for my life, never being like terrified just because I knew like I was a missionary. And
Yeah.
not saying nothing can happen as a missionary, but
Yeah.
I knew that I was protected in a way.
Hmm.
And so I had like literally an elder assigned as my bodyguard.
Really?
And he would call and check in every single night, like, are you okay, Sister Marin? Like, did you get followed? And I was like, no, we're good, we're good.
Wow.
So there were some scary things for sure. But
Can you speak to how involved, like in a situation like that,
mm-hmm.
that's clearly a time where the mission president and his wife, are involved. What
Yeah.
what was your relationship like with them, and how did they lead by example and kind of set the culture for your mission?
My mission presidents were like my favorite people. They still are my favorite people.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Like I just remember the very first day of my mission being like, wow, like they're inspired. And throughout my mission, I felt like they were my parents, like home away from home kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were just, oh, they were so awesome. Every zone conference, they just had such a light. You just could see that light, and that you never felt like you were like, I never felt homesick when I was with them because they brought that spirit to you that you didn't ever feel alone. You felt like you had your parents with you.
Yeah.
And their example was incredible. So,
I love that.
yeah,
Did you feel like your mission went by fast?
way too fast.
Really?
I would have stayed way longer if I could have.
Really?
Yeah.
And have you been back?
Yeah, I have.
Really?
Yep.
Super cool.
Super fun.
And so
Cool.
have you been able to kind of stay in contact with people you
Yeah.
met and those relationships?
Yeah, I try and call my members every Sunday.
Nice.
It helps having Messenger and
Yes.
Facebook.
Yeah.
All of those things were super helpful.
It's
So
such a blessing.
Yeah.
If someone were to ask you, and maybe it's already one of the stories that you've shared, but if someone were to ask you, what was like the story from your mission? Maybe another person you taught, whatever it is, what's the story that you'd use to share, if you could share one about your mission?
I think I would say I have two main stories that like changed my conversion, kind of
Okay.
brought everything.
Yeah, share them both.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll start with one. My first one was, so I was at the time I was a sister training leader.
Okay.
And all of them had cars. So I had a car at the time.
Cool.
We get a call from the sisters. One of them was like, hey, I need to go to the hospital. I'm low on iron. She had an iron deficiency and she needed a blood transfusion. She said it wasn't the first time, but she said she had talked to the mission president about it. Long story short, we pick her up, we take her to the hospital. The hospital in Tahiti is like Stranger Things. It's terrifying. There's
yikes.
beds up the hallways. Just like, you don't want to go there. Like, It's not great. So we get to the hospital and we're in the waiting room and we end up waiting for like 4 hours, 5 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like 10, so we left at like 3 a.m. that night. So we were there for a long time, just waiting for her to go back. And so the sister finally went back for her blood transfusion. We were like, okay. I was with my companion at the time. It was just us three. And my companion was like, Sister Herman, what should we do to use this time effectively? She was an amazing missionary.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at her and I was like, dude, it is midnight. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What should we do? Like, we should sleep. Like,
Yeah,
and
seriously.
she was like, no, like, let's do something. And I was like, okay. And so she had her hymn book out. And it was like the French and Tahitian one. And she was like, let's just like sing Tahitian hymns. We're like in the emergency room,
No
waiting room.
way.
And we're like, you know what? Okay. And so we decided that we're going to sing in the emergency room. Pre-mission me would have been like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
what else? What is this going to bring to the people? So we start singing, and people are walking in the emergency room, and they just like would look past us, and they'd either walk past or they'd come sit by us.
Really?
And so there's this lady, and she like walks past, and she just kind of had her head down, and she like walked past and looked at us. And we just kind of like looked at her, and I just was like, huh, like just kind of noticed something different about her, but I didn't know like what it was.
Yeah.
And so she walked past us, and then she went and she sat like right next to us, and she was like, sisters, like, I know who you are, like, you're the missionaries. And we're like, yeah. And so we had sang a song to her, and she just kind of like cried the whole time. She was super emotional, and we like didn't know why. We're in the emergency room, anything could be happening. And so we finished the song, and she sat and talked to us, and she was like, yeah, like my mom has cancer. She's basically like on her way out, and this song like really comforted me. And she's like, I know the missionaries. And we're like, oh, like you do? How do you know? And she's like, I'm from Bora Bora. So Tahiti's the main island, and then there's islands all around it. So Bora Bora is one of the islands of my mission. And so she said, I'm from Bora Bora. I flew in from the island this morning. I've been here all day long. And just, this is exactly what I needed. Whoa. And so that was just an experience that like really hit me of like, whoa, like, okay, like we're needed. So that ends. We say bye to her. Her name's Papeete. It's Tahitian.
Nice.
We say bye to her. She was awesome. The girl that got the blood transfusion she was supposed to, she comes out. She's like, they wouldn't give it to me. Apparently they don't do it here. So we're thinking, we just sat at this hospital for 4 hours for nothing.
Yeah.
And so we drive home at like 4 a.m. We call the mission president in the morning. We're like, hey, like this is what happened. Like she didn't even get a blood transfusion. So all of us in our heads could have been like, this is pointless.
Yeah.
But me and my companion just kind of had like this weird peaceful feeling like, okay, I think we were supposed to be there. We had met some people and sent references out to other missionaries. We kind of were like working like at midnight in the emergency room.
Might as well.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I just remember that. And then it was my last transfer. I served in Bora Bora. It was my last 6 weeks. And so I was just contacting with my new companion, and I was trying to make the most out of it. I had like few weeks left in the mission, probably like 3 at the time. And we found this random girl on the side of the street, and we go and we start teaching her, and she's like, yeah, I've had lessons before, but just kind of got out of contact with the missionaries. And so we start talking to her, just kind of get to know her, get to know like her life and her kids and all the things. And she starts telling us, she's like, yeah, I know the missionaries. And we're like, how do you know the missionaries? And she's like, well, I flew in to Tahiti, and she was like, my mom had cancer. And she was like, I was sitting there and I heard 2 sister missionaries singing in the emergency room. And I like couldn't speak. I was just looking at her like this was like months and months like later. Like that was the very beginning of my mission. I was in the emergency room singing those songs. And so I just said to her, I'm speechless. I was just looking at her tell the story, and she finishes, and I look at her and I was like, is your name Papeete? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I was a sister missionary in the emergency room that night singing. And she was like, I totally recognize you.
No way.
And that moment I was like, holy crap. Like the spirit was so strong, and I just knew like I kind of was at the end of my mission, and I was like, it was my last transfer, and that was like my first transfer in that area. Yeah. So it was kind of hard because I was like, where's my place? Where's my spot? Like, am I supposed to be here?
You're just going soon, so.
Exactly. Yeah. I was in and out of there. So when that experience happened, I was like, wow, like God is in every detail. Wow. And that just like took me back. So.
That's so crazy. Yeah. So did you like have a relationship with her? Did you teach her?
We started teaching her every week. We'd go over there. Her husband was super against her getting baptized, and they weren't married. That's a big problem in Tahiti. Yeah. They'll be together but not married. And so she couldn't get baptized while I was there, but she's still taking the lessons. Wow. And they have like family night every Monday night. So
that's amazing. And I'm sure cool. that was a very spiritual experience to her,
Mm-hmm.
and evidence that God is aware of her, and
Yeah,
maybe wants her to look for ways to strengthen her relationship
totally.
with God and Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's insane. I've never heard anything like that, to
Yeah,
see that kind of full circle moment.
yeah.
Um you said you had one other story. Let's
Yes.
hear that.
Okay, so that's my other story. It was like the middle of my mission. I was with, I was always in trios. I think I was in a trio this time, but I was in like the middle part of the main island on Tahiti, and our chapel was right next to a nursing home, like a old folks home,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't even like think that was like you could teach there as a
Yeah.
missionary.
Yeah.
But the companions before me, the sister missionaries before me, they had told us that they had been teaching over there. So we're like, okay, we'll try and go over there. So we went over there with a member one day. We were teaching this guy named Roland. He ended up getting baptized. He was like the best ever. He was just so excited, just like an old grandpa, just
Yeah.
an old teaching grandpa.
Just
He was,
stoked.
yeah, stoked every time we would come. And he had like a roommate, and like the whole house was full of just like old guys, old
Yeah.
men. They're so cute, old
Yeah.
Tahitians. Um, and I remember we went over for a lesson for Roland, and one day his roommate, Oliver, his name was Oliver,
Okay.
he was in his late 40s, so not too old. He was pretty young to be in the old folks' home.
Yeah.
And he had told us, I can't remember where he was from, but he was in kidney failure. He had one leg, his other one, I don't even know what happened. I think he was super, super sick.
Yeah.
So he had one leg and he was in a wheelchair. And
Hmm.
one day he wheels up to us and he was like, "Can I join on the lesson?" And we're like, "Yeah,
Of
like come
course.
listen. Yeah, come listen for sure." And it was the lesson we were inviting Roland to be baptized.
Oh wow.
And so we were kind of like, "Oh, like should we still do it? Like we
Yeah.
don't want to make him uncomfortable. We just like want the spirit to be super strong."
Yeah.
And so we start teaching, and you just kind of get the vibe with your companion. You kind of feel the spirit of what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I was feeling like, okay, we're going to invite him to be baptized, like, regardless of Oliver's here. So we invited him to be baptized, and Oliver just has the biggest smile on his face watching us teach Roland.
Yeah.
And he's just so excited. He was like, wow. And so we invited him to be baptized. He decides to be baptized. Oliver comes to the baptism, just watches the whole process go down, and was just truly like super excited.
Wow.
So then, ever since that, we started teaching Oliver.
Okay.
And so Roland was a member at the time. It was crazy. He was a member, and he would come teach his roommate Oliver with us every
Wow.
week. So we would teach him. It was super cool. He was just so enthusiastic about the gospel. He explained to us that his sister was a member,
Mm-hmm.
and he always just wondered why she was always so happy all the time. And so when he started taking the lessons, he was like, "This is why." Like,
Makes sense.
I just feel the joy. And
Yeah.
so we taught him, and over time, he just like one lesson, he looked at us and he was like, "I want to be baptized."
Wow.
And we're like, "Yeah, like you're ready." Like we
Yeah.
just kind of felt it. And so we invited him. We're like, we know that you're ready for baptism. Like, would you be baptized this month? And
Yeah.
so we kind of gave him a date that month, and he looked at us and was kind of unsure.
Hmm.
And Tahitians are really specific about their dates. They love getting baptized on like birthdays, anniversaries, kind of
Nice.
thing.
Love it.
And so he's like, "My wife that passed away, her birthday's next year." He's like, "What about next year?" And we're like, "You're ready right now."
Yeah.
And so we kind of tell him, we're like, "How about you pray about it and we'll come back." So
Yeah.
next lesson, he comes back. We're like, "How do you feel?" And he's like, "You know what? Like, sisters, I think I'm ready to be baptized." And we were like, "Okay." Like, we were super excited. We knew he was ready. So we called the elders immediately. We're like, "Hey, like, this guy, like, he's ready." And they're like, "Do you think that, like, he'll be ready by the end of this week?" Like, normally it's a process to get those interviews and make sure,
Yeah.
like, everything's good. But we're like, you know what? Like, we felt really good about it. So we're
Cool.
like, yeah. So he was ready. He got baptized the end of that week.
Wow.
It was super cool. That was definitely one of like the most powerful baptisms I ever saw on my mission.
Yeah.
He couldn't walk on his own. He had a wheelchair. And so there were 3 men that carried him into the baptismal font and actually
Wow.
like helped him go all the way under. And I remember just being super emotional, feeling the spirit. The spirit was super strong that day. And I just thought, like, if this guy can be baptized, like what more can I do? I
Yeah.
just felt the spirit and just his faith. Everyone could feel his faith and joy of how excited he was that day.
Yeah.
And so Oliver was baptized. He was super excited. I remember his smile after his baptism. He was super hyped. And then I got transferred from that area, and my companion stayed. So I got transferred to the islands, And my companion called me like 2 weeks after, well, a week after the transfer, or that I had been transferred. She calls me a week after I'd been transferred, and she was like, hey, we just got a call from the nursing home. And I was like, oh, like, what's up? And she was like, Oliver just passed away. And she kind of was super sad about it. And I was like, oh, like, Oliver passed away? Like, the one that just got baptized? And she was like, yeah. And I was kind of sad for like a second. And then I just felt this overwhelming, like, feeling of peace.
Wow.
I was super peaceful just because I knew exactly like where Oliver was.
Yeah.
And because he had made that commitment right before, like it was a week before he died.
Yeah.
And I remember the ward being super, super grateful that he had made that commitment. And ever since that day, I realized how urgent it was to share the gospel and the urgency of sharing the message that we had as missionaries to share.
Yeah.
And I think that like forever changed my mission. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Dang, those are two powerful stories.
Yeah.
You know, God is truly aware of his children, and
Totally.
he is relentlessly in pursuit of our well-being and our salvation. And I love that you say how, you know, there's obviously those moments of sadness and grief when someone passes, but sounds like for him that, you know, that could be a very joyous reunion for him and his wife, and, you know, any struggles he had physically, you know, and being able to hopefully get his resurrected body back, you know, like
Yeah.
there's so many things to be grateful for. And I think
Totally.
that's a knowledge and perspective that you have as a missionary, is the plan of salvation and God's plan. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Totally.
And not that death isn't something terrible to go through, you know,
Yeah.
seeing a loved one or a family member, friend pass away. It's never easy, and nor should it be. But having the knowledge of God's plan and kind of remembering to have an eternal perspective kind of helps
Totally.
you make that transition from sadness and grief to hope and optimism. And that's honestly the message that you carry as a missionary. And it's the
Totally.
message that we all carry as members of the church. And hopefully we can continue to do that, even though we don't wear that missionary badge, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
A lot of really cool spiritual lessons there. I'd love to ask you, this is just a question I thought of, going to such a foreign place like Tahiti, setting aside the spiritual lessons and benefits that you learned on your mission, what's something that you learned that has helped you in your life since, if that makes any sense?
A little bit.
Yeah, like if you like setting aside, you know, your testimony grew, setting aside like those more spiritual things, like practically what did you learn that has helped you? Like if it's like, you know, learning how to work with people, with a companion,
Yeah.
learning how to make friendships, what's something that's helped you in your life? Does that
Yeah.
kind of make
Yeah,
sense?
for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Going to a foreign place, especially like by, not technically by yourself because you have God, of course, but
Yeah.
definitely that was a big, big change. But I think I learned so many lessons. I don't have sisters at home. So being around girls all the time was a big change for
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
It was positive in the end. In the beginning, I had a little bit of a hard time, but I would say like the biggest lesson outside of that would be just like knowing who I was. I think that there's lots of experiences on your mission, definitely spiritual, but also just in every aspect. And it's just you kind of figuring yourself out in a way. And I think that my mission was like the best place for me to really figure out who I was.
Yeah.
Living in a foreign country and like figuring like in Tahiti there's no addresses, there's nothing, and my sense of direction was horrible before my mission.
Yeah.
I just learned like the little, like there's lots of life skills that I look back and I'm just
Yeah.
super grateful for. Communication was definitely a huge one on my mission. Communication with girls. I have brothers that just brush things aside.
Yeah.
And so being around like sister missionaries was a really cool thing. Just communicating and talking to strangers in a different language was something crazy to even think about I could
Yeah.
do. So there were lots of life lessons I learned. Yeah.
I love that though, even just communicating, because that's basically once you get home from your mission.
Yeah.
It's funny you grow up if you grow up in the church, a mission is such an eventful, a pivotal moment that you go through, and you almost feel like your life, it's like that's it,
Yeah,
but you come
totally.
home and you're like, dang, like this is
Yes,
only the beginning,
totally.
but
Yeah.
what a blessing it is to have those experiences on your mission to kind of
Mm-hmm.
set you up for success down the road, in your
Yeah.
career, in your relationships, in
Mm-hmm.
school, in work, whatever it is.
Totally.
There's so many benefits, like setting aside all the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
And then that spiritual stuff kind of rolls in and blesses you as well.
Totally.
Um, I want to wrap with asking you if a boy or girl going on a mission,
Mm-hmm.
they got their mission call, they read Tahiti,
Mm-hmm.
what can they expect? What's a piece of advice that you could leave with us that they could
Mm.
benefit from?
Oh, I love Tahiti. First of all, I'm not gonna say it's the best mission call because all mission calls are good, but I would definitely just say that those people are so loving. And the second that you truly forget yourself and go to work and just focus on those incredible people, the Lord will magnify your efforts and He truly will be with you every step of the way. And He, like, you're supposed to be there. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are called to the people that you're supposed to teach. And that is something you'll definitely learn as you go on in your mission. But just know that if you get called to Tahiti or if you get called wherever you're going, just know that's exactly where you're supposed to be, and those people will love you.
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
That's so spot on. And I think it's very applicable to a lot of countries,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Totally.
sounds like Tahiti is a very special place for you,
Yeah.
and because of the things that you witnessed and were a part of there. The thing I took away from you just saying is um, forgetting yourself and going to work,
Mm.
right? There's a quote in Preach My Gospel. And I'm pulling it up on my phone because it's actually not in the new Preach My Gospel,
Interesting.
and I'm kind of sad about it because it was one that I always turned to when I needed a little confidence and pick me up, and just kind of the idea of just like get over yourself and just
Yeah.
go do what God needs you to do. But it's
Mm-hmm.
from President Ezra Taft Benson. It says, I've often said, I've often said one of the greatest secrets of missionary work is work. If a missionary works, he will get the Spirit. If he gets the Spirit, he will teach by the Spirit. And if he teaches by the Spirit, he will touch the hearts of the people, and he will be happy. There will be no homesickness, no worrying about families, for all time and talents and interests are centered on the work of the ministry. Work, work, work. There is no satisfactory substitute, especially in missionary work. So I'll just kind
Powerful.
of leave it at that.
Yeah.
Kinley, thank you for taking the time to
Thank
chat
you.
with me today. It's
Of
been so
course.
fun to learn from you and hear about your experience, but you rock.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. That's been Kinley serving in the,
Tahiti Papeete mission.
okay, I don't want to attempt saying that,
I don't blame
but
you.
we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks.